Live from downtown Bakersfield, this is a special edition of 23 ABC News, and it starts now.
And good afternoon. Welcome to a special online edition of 23 ABC News In Depth. We're talking politics tonight. Recent polling showing Democrats in a strong position to take the House in November as calls for President Trump's impeachment now go mainstream, with the news of President Trump's longtime lawyer Michael Cohen taking a plea deal last week. And this week, the president igniting controversy when refusing to lower the flag to half-staff at the White House following Senator John McCain's death. After public pressure, that flag was lowered later the next day. We're joined by Congressman and House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy, and contender to be Speaker of the House should Republicans retain control. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me back, Tim.
I want to ask you what level of pressure tonight you're feeling as Republicans, as a Republican. Are you embracing, or at this point in the midterms, distancing yourself from the president?
Look, Tim, I think these midterms are going to be about results versus resistance. If you look, history is against the party in power, meaning the party that wins the White House. On average, they lose about 30 seats on those off-year elections. But the last party in power that had 6 quarters of economic growth, a GDP above 4%, they actually gained seats. So this is a much different perspective. Think for one moment. In the last 49 years in America, unemployment has only been below 4%, 8 months in those 49 years, and 3 of those 8 months were this year. Unemployment claims at a 49-year low. And it has reached almost all different aspects of America. If you were just have a high school degree, one of the best unemployment numbers. African American, Hispanic, the best you've ever seen. I mean, this is an opportunity that's different than we've had before. And then just look what we've been able to do with the VA choice, taking the GI Bill, not just for 15 years and you lose it, but now you have a lifetime. Or look what we've done with stopping human trafficking online. 70% of all human trafficking, this is modern day slavery, Tim, and you've done stories with me about it. You know that it happens right here in Kern County. That happens online. We stopped that this year, which has been a fundamental difference. And so we have a lot of things to show the results, right. But think about this. Not one Democrat voted for that economic package to make our country stronger. And we've rebuilt the military. So there are a lot of issues we can talk about, and I think the election is going to be much different than people predict.
And those are all positives. Obviously, the economy, the strongest it's ever been. You talk about the veterans and unemployment rates, historically low levels. Is the president getting in the way of the Republican agenda? All this good news you're talking about, so often week by week dominated by negative headlines surrounding this White House.
Well, think about what's happening there. You have more of the special counsel trying to go do things that have no association with the president. Manafort, what they tried him for, had no association with the president, nor did he even know him at that time. So the president has been very involved with, one, our tax bill and others. He's been, one, trying to make the world safer. See, North Korea is now talking to us about reducing nuclear weapons altogether. The region within the Middle East is in a better place than it was before. So I think from a lot of perspectives, this president deserves a lot of credit. I know there are people who don't like him and just didn't want him to win, but the election is over and now it's time to govern.
And recently you were speaking in Sacramento at a Public Policy Institute meeting. You were interrupted by protesters. They were voicing anger over your alignment with President Trump and his stance on immigration. I want to read from you an article, op-ed in the Sacramento Bee, if we can put that on the screen. This is really about the Republicans and Trump specifically. It's entitled "Silence is Complacency on Trump. California Republicans are guilty." In it, it says, Republican leaders of the legislative branch are failing to fulfill their constitutional duty to provide checks and balances on Trump, and McCarthy has given little indication that he would change that on his watch as Speaker. It went on to say, how much is he willing to tie himself to Trump in pursuit of the Speaker's gavel and the power that comes with it? Your response to that?
I wouldn't expect anything less from the Sacramento Bee. If the Sacramento Bee actually paid attention to what's gone on in the House, it was the Republicans that have put up 2 immigration bills and voted on, and not one Democrat voted for it. It was the Democrats who put a bill in across the desk that says they want to abolish ICE, immigration and customs. They want to abolish that. And enforcement. The other thing they want to do, 167 of them voted present when we put up what ICE has been able to accomplish. One, stopping tons of fentanyl from coming across. The number of gang members, MS-13, they've taken out of our communities to make it safer. So, I understand the liberal leanings of the Sacramento Bee, but if they paid attention to the facts, they'd probably write a much different editorial.
do you disagree on any policy issues with the president, or do you disagree on any of the actions from the president? Are there any moments, because we don't see it too often from necessarily you, but we do see it from some Republicans in the Senate and historically over the last few years. Are there any issues that you challenge the president on when you're in the Oval Office? You know what, Tim? I'm elected to represent the 23rd Congressional District. I don't agree with anybody 100% of the time. Yes, I disagree with the president. I voiced that many times with him. I didn't understand that we're supposed to go out and try to make a show out of it. I want to actually accomplish something. So when I disagree, I sit down and have a discussion with him to try to change an opinion, to move in a different direction. And we've been very successful in a number of items of doing that. So I think what the voters will look at the end of the day, not the idea that did someone put on some show on television and get upset, but did they have accomplishments? Did they have results? Is the economy safe? Are you safer in your jobs? Are your children having a better opportunity to actually go into the economy? Is the military stronger? Are we stronger when it comes to getting more water? We look at the WIN Act. These are all different ideas of why I ran for office. From the funding to when it comes to Valley Fever. Is Lake Isabella being rebuilt? The answers are yes to all that. I didn't get elected to say I'm supposed to just disagree with somebody in office and go on TV and show it. What they really want to see are results. And Tim, that's what I focused on, and that's what we've been achieving. And you talk about those highlights, and they are something to talk about. I do want to talk about something, an administration policy that has affected Central Valley residents, specifically farmers, the tariffs and the impending trade war with China. Tariffs have been set on products that are exported from the United States, imported from China. It has hit farmers specifically very hard. Of course, the government announcing that federal aid package to help rescue farmers who have been caught in the middle of this. Is enough of that aid coming back to Kern County? And can you confidently say to Kern County farmers, dairymen, almond farmers, pistachios, that they're going to be protected from this now what looks to be a pretty ongoing trade war? Well, Tim, you saw what I did. I brought in the Secretary of Agriculture, Sonny Perdue, right. And he sat down. We met with our farmers face to face because that's why I believe in listening. I don't believe anybody wins a trade war. But let's remember what happens here. It is China who are putting on the tariffs to American products. What we're trying to do is have a fair process. If their products are able to come to America with no tariffs or low tariffs, shouldn't our products be able to the same? After that meeting, you noticed last week what had come up. That aid package before didn't deal with almonds or pistachios, but after that meeting they did. So at times you see I disagree, but at times it also, the way I handle it, you get results that helps your district. I think that's what I'll be judged on. And you do, it sounds like you do think these tariffs are sort of a broad blanket over the entire industry, and it sounds like you don't necessarily agree that they're, in the impact that they're having. Look, I do not like tariffs. I rather have a fair competition, and I think America wins in that. China, I think all the world agrees, has been stealing, not just from America, the intellectual property and others from other countries as well. They make their market very difficult to enter. I think if we're able to lower the tariffs there, and look at what the president just recently agreed to. He got NAFTA on with Mexico renegotiated. America is stronger. He renegotiated South Korea trade agreement, which America's now products are stronger. He has been in negotiations with the EU, which they now have agreed to lower their tariffs on American products entering it. Remember what happens here. They make products as well, and they enter America with no tariffs, but our cars go over there and get 25% and 12% added. Look what's happening inside Canada. But now Canada is coming to the table because we were able to stand strong. There may be some disruption, but long term we will be stronger. And because there's a disruption, you want to make sure there's an aid package. What I wanted to make sure was that Kern County products were not left out. That's why I brought the secretary in. And when you found that the aid package finally was presented, you know what happened? It changed. Kern County was presented inside the aid package. I want to ask you about the country as a whole, the mood right now as we head into these midterms elections. Back to what you're talking about. Obviously, the economy, you laid out the plan for that. Unemployment, historic lows, veterans being taken care of, tax returns, and people's wallets fatter because of it. If the economy wasn't doing as strong as it was, do you think this president, this administration, the Republican Party as a whole would be looked at as favorable, or is the economy sort of the last stand in terms of the Republican messaging as you head into midterms? Tim, if you take the name Republican out,
anybody in office is judged by how the economy is doing. If you watched it before, if you watched Bill Clinton, his campaign slogan was, "It's the economy, stupid." So what I really think people think about, can they buy a house? Can they send their kids to college? Can they have that retirement going forward? Do you know that more people have health care now because the employee health care actually grew under this administration? Or do you know that Social Security is stronger because more people are paying in? Or that more money is coming into the American coffers because more people are working? Which the Democrats said this would be Armageddon, and when people are able to keep more of what they earn, said it was crumbs. So I think what people will judge us on, the difference between the two, the difference between results and resistance. Not one Democrat voted for that. But it's not just that, Tim. It's the safety of everything else. So yeah, people can judge. Now, history says that party in power that wins the White House, they normally lose seats.
Right.
But the last time that a party in power had economic growth as strong as we do today, all the polling said they were going to lose seats, and the next day they ended up winning 5.
You're mentioning the Clinton administration,
yes.
Correct? Yeah, I mean, do you think the country's in the same place, though, in terms of politics? You've looked at the numbers. You've looked at these districts. You frequently visit and help some of these congressional districts. What's your mood heading into midterms? And I specifically want to ask you about the speakership. How do you see that if you become the Speaker of the House? How do you see that for Kern County? Does this open us up, put us on the national stage in a good light? What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, you brought about the Clinton. It is different because President Clinton was impeached at the time. I know one of the things the Democrats would like to do if they were able to gain the House is impeach our current president. I don't think anybody in America wants to go through that again. That's disruptive. It doesn't take us forward. It's not the place we want to be, but that's probably going to be in the voters' mind when they go to the poll. If the Democrats are able to take the majority, that they will have impeachment, and then what will Washington actually accomplish from moving forward? They say they want to repeal the tax cuts, so people then will have to pay more. They say they want to change to a single-payer health care system. So 55% of our population gets their health care from their employer. They no longer can have that. And anybody who's on Medicare today is going to find that that's going to go bankrupt very fast because they're pouring everybody into it. And it costs more than $37 trillion. So I think people will keep that in mind as they're going forward. I know you bring up the talk of about a speakership. My only focus is making sure that a Republican can get elected Speaker in the next Congress. Now, we have more than 40 retirements, the most we've ever had. History says we're in a very tough spot. So I'm spending my effort to make sure people understand which results we were able to change in a short amount of time.
And what's fascinating, for the first time, the Speaker could, whether Democrat or Republican, could come from California for the first time. I want to move back here to Kern County.
And I think Kern County rather have one from here than from San Francisco.
Your supporters would probably agree with that. I want to ask you about, back here at home, the elections for November. Obviously, our ballot and here in the county and in the city of Bakersfield is pretty interesting. On one hand, voters will be given a chance to repeal the gas tax that Sacramento initiated without any voter approval. On the other hand, voters here are going to have a chance to enact a tax on themselves to pay and help with public safety, both at the police department, the Bakersfield Police, and at the Sheriff's Department. Interesting dynamic. What do you see happening here? Do these ballot measures have a chance here locally, or is this going to be a referendum on Sacramento politics and don't tax me more come November? Think
of this. In the last 6 years, the general revenue to Sacramento, to California, increased by $37 billion. Put that in perspective. That's the entire budget of Arizona and the entire budget of Wisconsin. How much money did Sacramento put into the infrastructure? Very little, if at all. What they then went and did, instead of they spent all that money, then they went to the taxpayers and says, no, you have to pay more, a 12-cent gasoline tax, and they tied it to inflation. It could get as high as $2. They didn't do the core responsibility they have as government to invest in the infrastructure, even though they had billions of more dollars coming in. They created more programs. So I think that gets repealed, because you know who that hurts most? People in Kern County, people who commute, people who are middle class. Then what does California do? If you're wealthy, they give you money to buy an electric car that pays nothing to drive on the roads that you are now paying more for. That's the difference between Washington and Sacramento. We let you keep more. We send back because we understand it's your money. It's not government's money. You earned it. You should keep it. You should spend it. But Sacramento keeps raising your taxes. Now, when it comes to a local, I look at local tax much different. If the money I spend is going to stay local and I think it's worthy, I'll invest in it because that's a quality of life. And what's going to happen more with what Sacramento is passing? Now there's no bail for people, that people can just be let out. They don't have to pay for it. They're continuing to let more criminals out because they're decriminalizing what's going on. You're watching the criminal rates go higher. I just saw on Facebook the other day where someone put a picture up where somebody kicking a door in Hagen Oaks in all different parts of the state.
Right.
I look at my app next door. Time and time again, I see from a car being stolen, from a house being robbed. But that all comes down to the people that they are letting out because they know they won't go back in to serve with that type of crime. That's not the community I want to live in. I want to live in a safe community. That's why I spend my time and my effort making our community and our country safer.
I want to ask you, today you were, I believe, in Arizona attending another service for Senator John McCain. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you know, towards the end of his life, his message to both Congress, both houses in Congress, was to really get along, to really come together. His message to the American people was put your beliefs behind and really focus on America and focus on being American and coming together. I'd be curious, this White House, we saw the missteps earlier this week with the flag not being lowered. The president seemed defiant to not say really anything positive until later in the day about the passing of Senator John McCain. I want to give you the opportunity, as someone who worked not in the Senate, but close by with Senator John McCain. Do you think that spirit that he is trying to embolden onto us can really survive the current process of our politics, or is it too far gone? I'd be curious to get your perspective on that.
No, it's not too far gone at all. Some of my best friends on the other side of the aisle. Listen, we don't have differences because we have parties. We have parties because we have differences. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can debate ideas. The difference is today, the whole start of your interview was, when have I ever criticized the president? It's almost like television wants us just to go and be angry with one another instead of find ways that unite us. I will tell you, more bills pass the floor with votes from both sides of the aisle than don't. But the major bills, like when you look at something like a tax reform, there were so many Democrats who told me they wanted to vote for it and that they were going to. But Nancy Pelosi, their leader, said, do not do that. Do not do it for political reasons, because we'll use this forum when it comes to the campaign time. That's wrong. John McCain would think that was wrong.
Right. Well,
I admire John McCain, and I don't know if you watched that funeral.
Right. I did.
But what his chief of staff told the story, he was a POW. His arms were tied behind his back, very tight, left for the entire night. This new guard came on. He never knew this guard before. The guard comes in, loosens his arms from the tie, and lets his night go like that. But right before the guard was going off duty, came back in and tied him tight. He saw the guard a little while later in the yard. The guard walked up to him, and it was a December time, and didn't say anything to him, but walked up right to him, put his foot in the dirt, and made a sign of a cross. You know, at the end of the day, faith made a difference. But the thing I've always remembered when I walk on that floor, we're all Americans first. We can have our differences, but at the end of the day, we've got to find our way to be able to come together. But social media, others, you know, there's a news station for whatever philosophical opinion you want to get your news in today. I'd rather find the ways that brought us together, celebrate those, and judge us on our results. But don't judge whether somebody yelled at somebody else, because I don't think that's the way my politics are going to be played. I want to listen, but then I want to have the courage to lead.
Well, Congressman, I asked you that question to begin this interview with because I feel some people feel that this president isn't quite getting that message that you just eloquently said about getting along and really remembering the spirit of why we're all here. It seems at times the president may be in opposition to that feeling, but no doubt you disagree?
Look, I've watched time and again, and if you watch the current news, and it's not my fact, it's the Harvard study, 92% of every news story on this president is negative. And, you know, that takes its toll on people. I think people ought to take a deep breath. The election is over. Let's put the country before politics, and let's solve our biggest problems. I watched as this president sat down with the leader of North Korea. And I watched a Democrat on the other side criticize him for it when he's trying to make the world safer. But it was just a year before the president was criticizing the leader of North Korea, and they said, this is terrible that he's doing it this way. There are different methods of this president to get the results. At the end of the day, I think you should judge him on his results.
All right, and certainly the voters will come November. It's going to be a big race, not only for the White House, but yourself. As we talked about, the next Speaker of the House is coming from California. It looks like it will either be a Democrat or Republican. Congressman Kevin McCarthy, we thank you so much for your time. As always, we wish you luck in Washington.
Thank you. Always great to have me.
Right, thanks.
Have me join you.